Okay, I have run out of memory 4 times on the phone and the tablet trying to make this, so I'm going to slam this into a 1 or 2 minute if possible. This is in reply to Reg Coates' video, his amazing video on the definition and explanation of hazard and danger trees. Now, I want to add a handful of things just to try to help progress the understanding and framing of these scenarios. Number one is that I don't think that it's fair to approach it I don't think it's fair, or rather, I don't think it's smart to contextualize it as the tree itself or even the project. I think it's better to look at it in terms of factors or attributes that are causing something to be unusual or tricky. Now, when factors contribute to actual danger and hazards, some of those factors are acceptable, like for instance the wind picking up when Reg is on a 200-foot tree. Some of them are unacceptable though, such as a rookie climber trying to do a particularly hazardous or unusual, let's say, tree. Calling a tree itself hazardous, like let's say that it has a vertical shear up its trunk, it's fair to call that a hazardous tree, but it's better to just call it a weakened tree, because like Reg says, if it's in the middle of the woods and no one's around it, there's no danger to anybody. But the second that someone goes into the woods and starts climbing it, trying to practice or mess around, then it does become a danger again. So I think it's best to look at it in terms of factors and attributes. Now, when it comes to are they worth more money? Sometimes, usually, yeah. Now, it's not, of course, and Reg goes over this, elaborates more on this, but it's not something where you're adding a line item or a percentage of, this is dangerous. Because to do that would effectively be saying I'm expecting an injury or I'm expecting damages to happen on this job. And if you're doing that, please cut it out because you're making us all look bad. If you're doing something where you genuinely expect that you're in a hazardous position, the only acceptable scenario for that is something where all the hazards and dangers are known and they're assessed to be worth taking. Like for instance, you may not be the best guy for the job of taking out a compromised limb on an oak tree, but if there's a big snowstorm coming and it's going to be there in 2 hours and it's going to stay for a week, and everyone knows that limb is coming down in the storm, it's better for you to try to get it down before it, because if you're not ready for it, you'll at least have a chance of getting it off the roof safely, whereas the storm will definitely put it right into the living room. So there are situations. That's why I like to look at it in terms of situations and factors. And I only began doing it that way after having watched Reg's video on this definition a couple of times, or listened to it a couple of times, I should say, because I put these YouTubes onto my cell phone and listen to them as podcasts. But that's the thing is, no matter which example he uses, and he really does a great job of illustrating things, but no matter which example, you can always come up with some extenuating circumstance, some outlier situation where it doesn't really apply, or where it does apply. And that's why I can't help but say that, help but conclude that we need to look at it in terms of factors, in terms of attributes. And do they make a job cost more money? A lot of the time, yeah, because most of the time, they're simply going to require more time and more equipment. Now, adding money for the sake of adding it is improper, but adding money because it costs more is because it costs you more, both in terms of your time, in terms of equipment, etc. Absolutely, you have to charge more for that. It's impossible not to. You won't be able to stay in business if you don't. So that's all the important points. Good, I was able to bring this in under 5 minutes. I will put URLs for Reg's explanation video, as well as his amazing podcast on climbing arborist, and Lawrence Schultz's TCIA presentation on urban and tight quarter rigging, which is a lot of crossover to this and fantastic. One last thing, since I haven't clipped 5 minutes yet, in Reg's video explaining this, he goes over something about the ethics of contracting versus in-house climbing for unusual situations, such as the Alberni Highway trees that him and Ryan had tackled in the video. he mentions how the guy brings him in, and they both know what time it is, and the guy says he doesn't want his lads on the job, and sure, that is the case, that you want to protect your own, but let's be real, it's about liability. And as Reg says, frankly, if he goes down, it's less mess. And that's true. And that's why we choose to be contractors instead of employees. And that's part of what we can offer, and what we seek to offer to established local companies who, for them, it doesn't make sense to have a super skilled climber rigger on staff at all times, because most of the jobs are small and don't require that. So you really only need a handful of super skilled climbers in an area. There's just not enough for them to do. And I mean, if you're in New York City, sure, but where I am here in West Virginia and Beckley, it's not as much the case. In fact, there's only a handful of ISA certs in the entire county. So yeah, it's Reg explains it as it possibly sounding unethical, the way that him and the contractors talk. I don't think it is for a second. I think that there's nothing more ethical than to be honest and clear about what we are and are not assuming in terms of liability and risk and the reasons for it. Pretending that it's all about, I want to protect my lads and I don't care about you. No, some of it's that, absolutely. But that guy likes Reg more than a lot of his guys, as far as I can tell, from the way I heard it explained. So it's absolutely also, or primarily, a liability insurance type of thing. If you're running an operation with your regular ground guys and you have a super unusual situation, 9 out of 10 of them are going to be happy to run up that tree and try it. And if there's a problem and something gets destroyed or the kid gets killed, that's coming right back on you. It's worth paying triple to bring in a contractor who has their own insurance and is billing themselves as the type that's for that job. Because if something goes wrong, it's not on you as the company owner. Anyways, I'm going to leave it here, and hopefully you guys can help me in the comment space with further expanding upon this, so that we can stop sounding like reckless contractors saying we do danger and hazard work, because that's not appropriate, and that's what gets more rules and legislation that we don't want. Thanks for watching, and please comment.